Today's Shiur, as Rabbi Gottesman said, it's an Erev Yom Kippur Shiur, and I think it is somewhat different than all the others we had in more than a year and a half that we've been learning together almost each and every week. Var Shavua B'Shavua. I think all the Shiurim we had up to this very day were halacha l'maisa, more or less, but they all were halacha l'maisa. Today, we can only hope Meheri Abona Beis HaMikdash should be halacha l'maisa. But in the past few weeks, we spoke about Tshuva. We spoke about the mitzvah Achila B'Erev Yom Kippur. Before Rosh Hashanah, I think we discussed Shofar. We discussed almost all the relevant sugyas, Pikuach Nefesh. Today we'll be dealing with Avodas Yom Hakippurim. And I don't know exactly which Maram HaKomis you discussed, but I want to start today's Shiur in Maram HaKomis you did not receive. And I want to finish today's Shiur with a thought that I elaborated on in my Shabbos Shuva Drosha, in my shul, Shabbos Kodesh Over Aleinu L'Toiva. So the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs, Mitzvahs Asay Memtes, writes that all the Avodas of Yom Hakippurim are included in one mitzvah. Because they all Bo'am L'Chaper. So I know you didn't prepare this. Unbelievable. We have it in a split second on our screen.
We prepared it, actually.
Really? Wow, I'm so impressed. I'm so happy.
Well, the Rebbe makes it very easy when you have voluminous writings. So we cheat a little bit and we get a chance to learn beforehand and we prepared to do that.
So let's have a look. Mitzvahs asay mentes. He should sivono lasses avodas hayom. Kloimar, klal, כל הקבונים והווידויים הבטוחים ביום יום כיפור, כדי שיכופר בהם. כל הווינס כמו שבא בכוסף. והיא עבודה כתובה באחרי מויס. והראיה על היוס הכלל כולו מצווה אחס, אמורם במסכת יומא. כל מעשה יום הכיפורים הוא אומר על הסדר, הקדם מעשה לחבר, לא יעשה כלום. הרמב"ם Mekatzel Khan, and he elaborated B'mokom Achar. So the Rambam in the Shloshim, in the introduction to Sefer HaMitzvahs in Shoresh Yud Aleph writes, whenever we find details, Masim Shoinim, how do we know whether every act, every deed is defined as a mitzvah b'fnei atzma? And when is one mitzvah a combination of various different actions? So the Rambam writes, if the details are ma'akev one and other, then they are one mitzvah. If they're not ma'akev one another, then they're separate mitzvahs. For instance, tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, and mishnah and menachos, einon ma'akvem zeh ezeh. You could make a bracha on one of the two, even if you don't have the other. Therefore, tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh are defined as two separate mitzvahs. Shchita, kabbalah, hoilocha, zorika, 4 different acts, but they're ma'akev. You can't do zdikas adam without shchita, and if you shecht a korban, you didn't do zdikas adam, you were not mekayim a mitzvah, and you need to do it all over again, and therefore, 4 different deeds are defined as one mitzvah. So the Rambam wants to prove from Yuma Daf Samach, Kol mitzvahs Yom Hakippurim hikdem ma'aseh lechaveroi lo yoso klum. So they're ma'akev one another, and therefore they're all one mitzvah. Now let me make this clear. A great part of Avodas Yom Hakippurim is not unique to Yom Hakippurim. Tamidim v'musafim. Same Shnei Tamidim, called Musaf. All the Musafim are included in one mitzvah, even though every Yom Tov has a different Musaf, a different number of karbonis. But the common denominator, they're all Musafim. The Rambam is not referring to Tmidim v'Misafim. The Tomad of Yom Kippur is mitzvah satomid. The Musaf of Yom Kippur is mitzvah samusaf. The Rambam is referring only to the karbonis and the different avodas that are unique to Yom Kippur. And the Rambam says they're all one mitzvah. Not all the Rishonim agree to the Rambam. The halachas gedolos, the Yereim, count various different mitzvahs. And actually the Rambam is tzorchi and godol. Why? Because in that very same source, Yumed Av Samach, there's a machlokes Reb Nechemia and Reb Yehuda. To which avodas are Chazal referring to when they say Hikdim Masa Lechaveiroi Loi Asu Krum? Reb Nechemia says, Kolo avodas anases v'bigdei lavan. Essentially, those are all the avodas which are unique to Yom Kippur. Avodas Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippurim is bigdei lavan. But Rabbi Yehuda is more mitzamtzem the klal, and Rabbi Yehuda says avodas anasen b'bigdei lavan bifnim. Only the avodas anasen b'bigdei lavan bifnim, which means b'kodesh hakodoshim. But the various avodas, bigdei lavan b'chutz, are not ma'akev one another. But the Rambam says all the avodas hayoim are one mitzvah. If the Rambam's source is Yumed Av Samach, the Rambam source is Divrei Atzmoi, because Perekei, Aloha Aleph, Hilchos Avodas Yom Kippurim, the Rambam paskins in accordance to Rabbi Yehuda, only Dvorim Anasim b'Bigdei Lavan b'Fnim are ma'akev. Bigdei Lavan b'chutz are not ma'akev. What are the avodas? Bigdei Lavan b'chutz. Hagrola of Shnei Siyurim, Vidui. There was no vidu in Kodesh HaKodeshim. The three viduim that the Kohen Gadol says are in the Heichal, not in Kodesh Kodeshim. Dam hanizak ala kapoires. That's not in Kodesh HaKodeshim. Ala paroiches, not the kapoires. So why would the Rambam include them all in one mitzvah? Lani is daiti. I think, and that's why I'm happy we have the Rambam on our screen. I want to read again the first three lines. Shetzivonu lasses avodas hayoim koloimer. Klal kol hakarbonis v'aviduim hametukolim b'yom sem kippur kedei sheyuchaper behem kol ha'avodos. Kedei sheyuchaper behem kol ha'avodos. That is the most important hagdora in this Rambam. What is unique to all avodas Yom Kippurim? Kapora. That is the essence of Yom Kippur. The Rambam in Hilchos Shuli defines Yom Kippur, Kates Mechila Tzlicha V'Kapora L'Kol Yisrael. That is what brings all these avodas together, and that is the reason they're all considered one mitzvah. Avodas HaKapora B'Yom Kippurim. The Rambam, one line later writes, that's just a raya, that's just to prove a point. It's not the essence. It's not the reasoning. It's not the rationale. It's just proof. So let me share with you how I understand the raya. The Rambam just wants to prove that various different karbonis and different avodas still would be included in one mitzvah. Haparva hasoyo. Dama parva, dama soyo. Shchitas haparva, shchitas hasoyo. They're two different karbonos. But they're both dvorim anasim b'bigdei lavan bifnim. And that is why they're one mitzvah. So the Rambam just wants to make a point, and that's his proof. Haparva hasoyo are two different karbonos. Afal piken, They're ma'akev, one another. Higdem echad lechaveiro lo yosaku. Even though they're two distinct, different karbonos. And therefore, it's reasonable to assume, why would the par and the soil be the same mitzvah? Because essentially, shneim bo'im lachaper. The goyrol, the vidui are just supplementary. Mizvad al par, mizvad al isor. The goyrol is to differentiate between shnei asirim, which one goes to Hashem, which one goes to Azazel. These are details. So the proof that Rambam brings from Yom Daf Samech is not relevant to all the Avodas Yom Kippurim, but it does prove two distinctly different karbonos are one mitzvah. And why is that? Shneim bo'im lachaper. And therefore, it's reasonable to assume that all Avodas Yom Kippurim kedei sheyechupar behen kol avonos are included in one mitzvah. That's my Pshat Rambam. Now, the Lechem Mishnah deals with this problem. How does the Rambam prove everything is one mitzvah? The Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. So that would not include vidui, and the Rambam includes kol karbonos v'haviduyim. So the Lechem Mishnah wants to say that Rambam has a totally different pshat b'fnim. No kedivrei Rashi, b'fnim means kodesh hakodeshim, b'fnim in the heichal. But then he rejects that pshat. No, if the heichal is b'fnim, then what's b'chutz? So the Lechem Mishnah says no. It's not reasonable that the Ramban has a different interpretation of b'fnim. B'fnim is kodesh hakodeshim, and the Rambam agrees with the Rashi. So what's the Rambam's raya? Lanias daiti k'moshe amarti. He just wants to prove parva soyer, two clearly different karbonos. They're one mitzvah. Both are nasim bebig delovim b'fnim. And why are they one mitzvah? Bo'im lechaper. And therefore, kol avodas yom kippurim sheboim lechaper would be one mitzvah. And now we want to speak about soyer HaMishtaleiach. Soyer HaMishtaleiach is the most baffling and mysterious avodah of Yom Kippurim. First, we'll deal with the lumdus of soyer HaMishtaleiach, and then just a drop of machshava. Soyer HaMishtaleiach is a korban. Why is it a korban? There is no shchita, no avodas hadomim. And a karbonos, what is really the essence of a korban is avodas hadomim, zrikas adam. That is the climax of avodas hakarbonos. Haktoras eimerim is not miyakev. Zrikas adam is. Soyer HaMishtaleiach is a machlokes Rambam and Ravid. Perek Yud Ches Halacha Yud Aleph. Not Avodas Yom Kippurim, but rather Masa HaKorbanos. The Rambam says there's an issur of Shchita Chutz. The Ravid says no. There is no issur of Shchita Chutz, only Dvorim HaRoim Lavoi LePesach HaHeichel. What is Roi LeKolis V'fnim? There's an issur of Shchita Chutz. But what is not Roi LePesach HaHeichel? There is no issur. What's not Ra'ui Lefnim, there is no issur of Shchita Chutz. But actually, everybody agrees, Soyer HaMishtaleiach is a korban. Up to what stage? Even if there is no issur of Shchita Chutz, it's only Zeres HaKosov. As we learn in one of the longest Mishnayos in Shas, which is in Zvochim Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, Kuf Yud Beis Amud Aleph, Poras Chatas, first Mishnah. So till what stage would Soyer HaMishtaleiach be defined as a korban? Three possibilities. Hagrola, because till the Kohen Gadol is Magril, and the Goydel is Kaveya, which of the Shnei Seirim is Lashem and which is Lazazel, both are Ra'ui, Levefnim. Each of these two animals could ultimately turn out to be Hashem, to be the soil whose dam is nechnas lefnai velefnim. So possibility both. Number one would be ad agrola. But when the Rambam says Sora HaMishtaleiach, there's an issue of Shchut Chutz, he doesn't mean before agrola. Because before the agrola, it's not a Sora HaMishtaleiach. Shnei HaSeirim, we don't know which one will be Lashem and which one will be Lazozel. Stage number two would be Vidui. After Hagrola, the Kohen Gadol is Misvada, and each of the two Seirim. That would be possibility number two. And both these possibilities are in the Gemara, Zvochim, Kuf, Yud Gimel Amid Beis. Kan lifnei Hagrola, kan liyachar Hagrola. And the Gemara rejects that. Havemina, Elo Amerav, kan lifnei vidui, kan la'achar vidui. The Shagas Aryeh, and there's a magnificent sefer Masechet Yuma, which is Gevuras Ari. Shagas Aryeh is best known for his monumental sefer, the Shagas Aryeh, but he also wrote Turei Even, and 3 Masechtes, Seder Moed, and Gevuras Ari, and Yuma, and Matas. Yuma Memalaf Omedalef, he has an amazing discussion. Koshro Loshon Shel Zahiris L'Sora HaMishtaleiach. Why isn't there an Isser of Avodah B'Kodshim? Psochim Samach Vav, Hillel HaZoken was asked, Shochach Lehevi Saken Shel Shchita. How would he bring the Saken Shel Shchita? Shchita Sapesach. Tochvoi Besaroi. But the Gemara says, Hu Ko'oved Avodah B'Kodshim. You can't put the Saken on the Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach is also B'Avodah. You can't do Avodah with Karbonos. So the Gemara says, Kehilel. Hillel says when a person brings a Korban, he should be Makdash the Korban only. But Pesach was Zora. He shouldn't be Nichshal in Avodah B'Karbonos. Same with Korban Pesach. Tosis brings a Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says anything that is Tzorech HaKorban, there is no Isra Avodah B'Kodshim. And because they don't have a Saken Shel Shchita, Shochach Lehevi Saken, it's Tzorech HaKorban. Obviously, that would be a Machlokes Bavli and Yerushalmi. So the Gemara said, yes, just like it's an Isra to put the Saken Shel Shchita on the Korban Pesach, what would be the beheter of Loshen Shel Zahiris on the Sora HaMishtaleiach? So the Shagas says, before Hagrola, Nicha, because we don't want these Shnei Seirim to be confused with other animals in Beis HaMikdash. These are the Shnei Seirim of Avodas Yom Hakippurim. Achar Hagrola, Nicha, because we don't want the Sora HaMishtaleiach to be confused with the Soel Hashem, and the Siman Heker would be Loshen Shel Zahiris, Shekoshim Barash Sora HaMishtaleiach. But the moment the animal is taken out and Ish Iti takes it out of the Beis HaMikdash, why is it so important to have the Loshen Shel Zahiris? So the Shagas Aryeh deals with the question, maybe after Vidui, it's no longer a Korban. It has Kedushas Vedek HaBayis. Choris Yudalet is Mavur, but Kodshe Vedek HaBayis is no Issa Diuraisa Vavoida. Oh, so Shagas Aryeh discusses, would the Sora HaMishtaleiach still have Kedushas HaGuf, Kedushas HaKorban, Achar Vidui? And his natir is, yes, it would. So regarding the concept of the Shagas Aryeh, according to Yerushalmi, I don't think it's a kasha at all because it's Tzorech Korban. That's the din, that's the minig. And when he comes to the tzuk, he tiles the Loshen Shel Zahiris to a rock, and he pushes the animal off the cliff together with that rock. So it's Tzorech HaKorban. But the Shagasari argues the Bavli disagrees with the Yerushalmi. So according to the Bavli, Adayin Tzorech Iyun. The Briskerov and Stencil quotes Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim says the HaMishtaleiach has a din of korban only up to the stage of vidui. Vidui is nasa b'fnim. We find vidui by other korbanos as well. Every chatos, every osham. So vidui would be defined as avodas korban. So Reb Chaim argued that the HaMishtaleiach has a din of kedushas korban up to vidui. La'achar vidui, it's like la'achar zlikas adam. La'achar zlikas adam, there no longer is an issa me'ila. So the same would be la'achar vidui. The Meitzer Ilui quotes this in the name of the Briskerov. The Briskerov in stanza quotes it in the name of Reb Chaim, which is a fascinating idea, that vidui would be the equivalent of zrikas adam by other korbanos. So HaMishtaleiach, there is no shchita. So the essence, the climax of avoda, so HaMishtaleiach is vidui. That is where the similarity between the soil and any other korban ends, because we find vidui by other korbanos as well. Vidui bepar besoel shel Yom Hakippurim. So vidui is the climax of kedushas hakorban of HaMishtaleiach. However, the Gemara Sari maintained even after vidui, it's still kedushas hakorban, and that is the Rashba in Shavuos Yud Gimel on the base. Shavuos Yud Gimel, the Gemara says, "Yes, b'Yom Hakippurim ma she'ein b'soel, v'yesh b'soel ma she'ein b'Yom Hakippurim." Yom Hakippurim mechaper b'li soil. On the other hand, soil ein mechaper b'li korban. Yom Hakippurim mechaper b'li korban. What does the Gemara mean? Soil ein mechaper b'li korban. The Rashba says two different pshotim. Shavuos Yud Gimel. When the Gemara says b'li korban, the kavanah is b'li shiluach. Shiluach is avodas hakorbanos of HaMishtaleiach, and that's a raya to the Shagasari. Shiluach ain't a ma'akev. Vidui is ma'akev, and that would prove Reb Chaim's point. But the Rashba says it's not ma'akev, but it still is avodas hakorban. And that is what Chazal define. Soel einoi machaper beli korban. But then the Rashba says another pshat. Beli korban means zrikas domim shel soel Hashem, which is the other half of the HaMishtaleiach. Imroi nizrak dam shel korban soel Hashem. HaMishtaleiach is not machaper. These two seirim, Mishamshim be'irbuvia, even after the Goyrel separated between them, after the Goyrel was Koveya, which one is Hashem, which one is Vasoza, they still interact. Vasor eine machaper, elo, al yedei tzrikas damim shel soel Hashem. And the Rashba says, my second pshat is the Ikar, ki ein hashiluach korui korban. So it's summoned as a Havaman of the Rashba, but the Rashba retracts. Ein hashiluach kori korban. However, we do find a source in the Rishonim that would prove the Ashkaf of the Gemara Sari, and that's Shitta Mekabetzes Tmura Daf Yud Omid Beis. So in Kachum we have Shitta Mekabetzes on the Daf. And don't look for it in Tmura Daf Yud, but in the Hashmotas at the end of Masechet Tmura. Shitta Mekabetzes writes that if ish iti is doicha letzuk, a soil that's a balmum, It's an avera like a makrev balmum al gabe hamizbeach. That's an amazing chiddush we find in no other source in the Rishonim. Shiluach hasoyo dichiyosoi min hatzuk. That is gemar avodas hakorban shel hasoyo. And if the behem is a balmum, it's like makrev balmum al gabe hamizbeach. So there are three possibilities. One would be hagrola. That would be good according to the Ravid. There is no isav shchita chutz, but the Rambam says there's an isav shchita chutz. There is no shchita chutz if it's not roi lefnim. So according to the Rambam, after hagrola, it's still kedushas hakorban. If you learn Zvachim Kuf Yud Gimel Amid Beis, there are two gerses. The gerse in Shas Bavli is Lahoitzi es asor HaMishtaleiach. And then on the side, between the Gemara and Rashi, Sforim Acheren or Nusach Achar. I don't remember this moment whether it's Nun Aleph or Samach Aleph. Nusach Achar, Sforim Acheren. LeRabo es asor HaMishtaleiach. And that's the Machlokes Rambam and Rabbit. So the Rambam says, so Mishtaleiach even la'achar hagrola. There's an isav shchita chutz. The Rabbit says no. Ein roi lefnim. So Mishtaleiach, you can't be makrid. Before the hagrola, it's roi lefnim. It might be l'Hashem. Li'achar hagrola, it's l'Azazel. So there's no isav shchita chutz. The only way to understand the Rambam is according to Reb Chaim. Vidui. Vidui is roi lefnim. Vidui is avodas hakorban. And that depends on the two gersois. And the two drochim in the Gemara. Lifnei hagrola or lifnei vidui. But I think the Rambam and the Ravid have a machlokes. How do we define what is the essence of the aveir of shchut echutz? How do we understand the yesod to be shoichet a korban b'chutz? I would suggest two different interpretations. What is the essence, the mahus of the aveir of shchut echutz? One would be bitul avodas haPnim. If you take this korban, you shecht it b'chutz, you pass it on the korban, and you were mevatel avodas haPnim of this korban. If you shechted this animal b'chutz, you could no longer proceed with Kabbalah, Hoilocha, Zrikas Domim, Haktoras Eimerim. You passed the korban. And that is the is of Shchita Chutz. Bitul Avodas Pnim. Or maybe the Mahusa Aveira is a totally different concept. Not the fact that you are Mevatel Avodas Pnim. And the korban is designated to avodas pnim. No. The same shchita that you did b'chutz should have been done b'fnim. And if you do this avodah instead of doing it b'fnim, you did it b'chutz, that is the chait. I think the Ravid would define the isra of shchita chutz. This shchita needs to be b'fnim, and if you do it b'chutz, that's the aveira. And therefore, b'sor mishtaleach, there is no shchita b'fnim. So there would be no isa shchita chutz if you do it b'chutz, because there is no shchita b'fnim. The Rambam's definition of shchita chutz would be bitul avodas hapnim. So, if you took this animal, lifnei vidui, ishechted it b'chutz, you are mevatel mitzvah vidui, and vidui is a mitzvah. You are mevatel avodas pnim, because you shechted the animal b'chutz, you are mevatel vidui, and there's no difference between bitul vidui or bitul shchita kabbalah halacha zrika by other kabbalahs, and therefore, according to the Rambam, there would be an isav shchita chutz. According to the Ravid, no isav shchita chutz. So there are two different ways of understanding the machlokes Rambam and Ravid. One would be according to the Ravid, there no longer is kedushas korban. It's not the way b'fnim. It's only Ro'ah Lefnim and Lifnei Grora. The Achar Grora, it's no longer Ro'ah Lefnim. Ra'ui Levidu is not defined as Ra'ui. Only Ra'ui L'shchita v'avodas Adam is Ra'ui Lefnim. The Rambam says no. Vidu would also be defined as Ra'ui Lefnim. The other interpretation would be dealing with the essence of the Issa of Shchut Chutz. Oid Rega Adavera. In the past year and a half, we went through so many sugyas, Baruch Hashem. And I daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we should be able to continue in this coming year. B'brius, b'simcha, v'nachas. And I'm sure that you heard from me many times that I'm not very excited about Shnei Dinim, generally. Shnei Dinim is the cornerstone of Brisket Torah. Reb Chaim, his great son, the Brisker Rav, and all their great Mamshichei Darko. Shnei Dinim is a concept which is very, very common and popular. It's the Gedoyle Brisk. I myself, everybody learns with the light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu bestowed upon him. Adal shebedalim. I always prefer one din, complicated as it may be, upon Shnei Dinim. So Reb Chaim says, so HaMishtaleiach, Shnei Dinim. The sword is machapa like other karbonos that are machapa. Kol hachatois, v'ashamois, even korban oila is mechaper, and Zvochem Dav Zayin, there's a concept in Kodeshim. It's mechaper mekiva, mekufya, v'lo mekiva. Chazal said that the oil is mechaper on mitzvahs asay. Chatois and Hashomis are mechaper on lavim. So Reb Chaim says the HaMishtaleiach is like a korban. And it's mechaper metoiras korban. The other din of HaMishtaleiach, it's part of the broader Kaporas Yom HaKippurim. And Reb Chaim says, the Gemara says, the soil is mechaper even on Avodas that a person would do la'achar asor sheishtaleach. Karbonas HaKorban cannot be a korban. It's never mechaper, only Avodas that were performed before you brought the korban, not after. So Reb Chaim says, so HaMishtaleiach is Shnei Dinim. It's part of the greater Kapor of Yom Kippur, and it's mechaper as a korban. As a korban, it's only mechaper the Avodas that were performed before the Sorah was thrown off the cliff. But Reb Chaim lacks to define, so exactly what is the difference between the two kaporas? What happens at the kaporas korban? What happens at the kaporas Yom HaKippurim al yedei soer HaMishtaleiach? And as in 1,000 other sugyas, I'm not convinced that there's any source to prove Shnei Dinim. And therefore I say, so HaMishtaleiach is a din murkav, unlike any other korban. So on one hand, it has kedushas hakorbanos. Definitely, according to the Rambam, there's an issa of shchut chutz. But it is unlike any other korban. And it is part of Yom HaKippurim. And Kaporas Yom Kippur and Kaporas Asur fuse together. Some kind of a fusion, which is Nizgav Mebino Seinu. Because the Gemara definitely says, Bisman Hazeh, there is no soil. Yom Kippur Mechaper without the soil. That's a Gemara in Shavuos Daf Yud Gimel. But the soil definitely enhances Kaporas Yom HaKippurim. And because the soil is part of Avodas Yom HaKippurim, and Yom Kippur is Mechaper Alidei HaSoyim, it is Mechaper even Avodas that will be performed Le'achar Shiluach HaSoyim. One din, which is complex, which is unique, rather than Shnei Dinim, Korban L'chud and Yom Kippur L'chud. So let me just share with you briefly what I discussed in my Shabbos Shuvah. And a touch of Musar and Machshava. After all, it's almost Yom Kippur. So HaMishtaleiach is the most confusing of all Avodas Yom Hakippurim. Ein doim aloi. We take an animal, 2 animals, and the Mishnah says they need to be shoving, same price, same size, same appearance, like the Shnei Luchos that we're shoving. Shnei Asiyim need to be shoving. Essentially, by their nature, no difference between one and the other. Only the Goyrer is Kaveya, Lashem, Velazos. Then we take the animal, Ish Iti, a person that was designated and prepared from before, and he goes to Yerushalayim. He's entitled to carry that animal on his back if need be. He could eat and drink if he doesn't have koyach. And we throw the animal off a cliff, and it's torn apart, and that is the kapara. Could we understand what this is about? The Rambam was the great rationalist, the great philosopher. Moyer Nevuchim Chelik Gimel, Perek Mem Vav, the Rambam writes sarcastically, are Avodas like a bundle or a package? You could put it on the back of an animal and send it away. So HaMishtaleiach is symbolic. And that is the approach of the Rambam in Tamei HaMitzvos, symbolism. And the HaMishtaleiach is just a remiss to the person, how awful Avodas are, where they belong, how harmful they are. So we take the soil, we throw it off a cliff, and people should just make a cheshbon and nefesh. That is the stuff of a balavera, tragedy, demise. So that's the approach of the Rambam. It's all remozim, symbolism, derech mashal. The Zohar and the Mekubalim have an amazingly profound concept, which I will not discuss today. This is pure Kabbalah. It's like we give shaychad to the Samach Mem. Let him shut his mouth. Let him eat his fill. So HaMishtaleiach is like shaychad to the Samach Mem. He should not interfere with the Kapara. That is something which is totally in the realm of Kabbalah. What I want to share with you, and I shared with my Kehillah, was a beautiful Mahalach of the Maharal. The Maharal is in the Drosha L'Shabbos Shuvah, in the Droshas of the Maharal. And the Maharal says, these 2 Seirim are intrinsically connected up to the very last moment. And I made that comment before on the Lamdish Chelik of today's Shiur. It is only the Goyel that determines which goes where. And the Maharal says, why do we take Dam HaSoyer? And why is the Soyer Machaper? The part is Machaper al Koyanim, the Soyer is Machaper al Kol Yisrael. When Yosef's brothers wanted to lie to their father, Toraf Yosef, they took Seir Izim. And Chazal say, the animal whose blood is most similar to human blood is a soyer, is a goat. And that's why the brothers killed the goat. Because a goat's blood resembles human blood. And the Maharal also comments, Ki hadam hu hanefesh. The dam is the nefesh. So we take one soyer and we bring its blood into Kodesh HaKodesh. The blood of the soyer is as if our blood. And our blood is our nefesh. That is the pnimius. And it goes into lefnai v'lefnim. Nothing else goes in lefnai v'lefnim. No other blood throughout the entire year. Dama parva, dama soya, only Yom Kippur. So our nefesh, our blood goes lefnai v'lefnim. And we mean to prove the Bnei Shalom look into the lefnai v'lefnim of our hearts. It is clean. It is tahor. The nefesh hachayim, Shar Aleph, I think it's Perek Yud Ches, Perek Yud Tes. Nefesh hachayim is marach in an idea which is more common in Sefer Chasidus. Ki chelek Hashem Amri. Deep in the Yiddish hearts, there is always purity. You remember the Rambam Menuchas Gerishim, Makanoi Sachiyoy Meroitzani. The Rambam writes, every Jew wants to do Resayin Hashem. It's only the Yetzer. He's compelled, he's an honest. But that is only Chitzonius. Deep in his heart, a Yiddish heart is always a Yiddish heart. I had a relative, and I'm just sharing this with you. He was born in a very firm family, a Chassidish family in Hungary. He was a young boy when he was thrust into Auschwitz. He was relatively young after the war. He wasn't firm. He lived a totally secular life. Lived somewhere out there where there was a very, very small Jewish community. Recently, I spoke. A rabbi in that community reached out to me. He wondered. Somebody told him that he was a relative of mine. And he told me he used to come to Shul only Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. He was very successful. At the end of his life, when he fell ill, he started putting on tefillin. And it was so sad. So sad. It was late. But in a way, it's never late. So the Pnimius Alev is always Toil. So the Maral says, one soil, and the dam atamtzis, ki adam or nefesh goes lefnai v'lefnim. And that justifies taking all the Avodas, the chutz shebechutz. If the dam could go lefnai v'lefnim, then the Avodas should go as far as possible. The Avodas are not us. The Avodas are superficial. Yes, we failed. We did Avodas. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked deep into our hearts. That's the Nefesh HaChaim, Svasemes, many Sefer Chasidus, quoting the name of the Mezritch Maggid, Ki Chelek Hashem Amo. So the Zohar says that the Shnei Sirim are Yankov and Esav. And this connects to a Medrash in Parshas Talmud. Haloi Esav ochi isoyo v'onochi ish cholok. The Medrash says, Seirim yirkedu sham. Seirim is the Samach Mem. V'onochi ish cholok. And I'm using the mashal we find in Medrash. Two people were standing begotten when they cut the wheat. One had curly hair and the other was bald. And the dust and the dirt got in, covered their both heads. The guy that had a curly head, he ripped his hair out with brushes and combs and couldn't get rid of all that stuff that stuck into his head. The guy that was bald, and he was clean. Yankov says, so the Medrash says, the Avodas to us, they're just like dust on a bald man's head. All you need to do is wipe it away and it's gone. Rashi writes, Kol kapora loshin kinuach. Just need to wipe it away. In our heart, every Yid is Torah. And that is the avoid of Shnei Asurim. The dam of the one goes lefnai v'lefnim. The Avodas on the other go as far as possible. Eretz midbar, thrown off a cliff, never to be seen again, never to be known again. That is the side of Shnei Asirim. So we turn back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu asking for Mechila Slicha V'Kapora. And I said, Mochisi Ka'ov Sho'echa Ocha Onan Chatosecha. Our Avodas are nimshal to the clouds. When you stand down here on earth and you look up at the sky, the clouds seem to cover the sky. And from our point, the way we see it, and probably ancient men thought that the clouds are stuck to the sky. But today we have planes, and anybody that took a flight, in 20 seconds, you're on top of the clouds, and you realize that the distance between the clouds and the sky is 1,000 times greater than the distance between the little mensch that's standing on the ground looking up at the clouds. Our Avodas are so far from the sky. Mochisi ka'ov sho'echo, u'cha'onon chatoisecho. Our Avodas don't even touch our neshamas. So far from Pnimius Alev. And that is the limit schus when we turn back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Yom Kippur. And Shalashudas, I explained, Tshuva is not only regretting Avodas. Tshuva literally means coming back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu back into your life. And many times they ask my Talmidim, do you really have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And how do you define your relationship? How much percent of your simcha and your agmas nefesh is related to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How much percent of your simcha and your tzar has to do with Chai Yishon, and how much has to do with Chai Olam? We need to just think about this, what is really important in our lives. We're happy about success, we're happy about COVID, we're happy when we make money. So it's an amazing Gemara in Brachos Daf Tes. An amazing Gemara in Brachos Daf Tes. You're going to Eretz Yisrael. I have a brother living there. He's a great man. What's so great about him? Sameach b'mitzvos. Pam achas samach geula l'tfila v'lo posek chukim mepumei kol hayom. He once was samach geula l'tfila and he smiled all day. Let me ask you, my dear friends, you're walking in the street and a person you know for many years comes across you and you see him from 50 meters away, from 50 feet, and he has such a huge smile covering his face. So when he comes close, you say, it was in the news that somebody won the New York lottery, $50 million. Is that you? Because you seem to be so happy. So, I never buy a lottery in my life. I didn't buy a ticket. Oh, I know you've been looking for a shidduch for your elderly daughter. She's 25. Did you do a shidduch? So, no, I'm still down and I'm still hoping. So why are you so happy? And he says, I said Tillim this morning and it went very well. I think most of us will just stand there and think to ourselves, do I know a good film psychologist? This person needs help. Something's wrong with him. And I say, no, something's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with him. That's the story of Rav Broiner. Pam achas somach geula l'tfila v'lo posek chukim mepimai. I remember as a younger man, I'm sharing this story because I'm Hamish with you. Many, many years ago, as a younger man in Kiryat Sanz, I was walking on the street and a friend comes across me. And when we meet each other, he tells me, Usha, I was looking at you for a few minutes and you were just laughing to yourself. You were smiling to yourself and you look like a fool. He tells me, watch out, be careful. Don't do shtuyot. Now, I don't remember why I was smiling. I didn't win the lottery. And I didn't find a shidduch for my daughter because she was 5 years old at the time. I hope I was smiling because I said a good svar. Or maybe I said Tillim, I hope. I don't remember. But when we come back to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, tshuva is just coming back and bringing the Kodesh Baruch Hu back into your life. And this is a very fundamental question. How much percent of your simcha has to do with Ruchnius, has to do with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. How much percent of your Admas Nefesh has to do with Ruchnius? Didn't daven well enough, didn't finish the daf, fell asleep in the middle of learning. How much Admas Nefesh do you have associated with Chaya Olam? How much with Chaya Shuv? That is what Shuva is about. Shuva Yisora L'Shem Elokecha. It's about Vekas. It's about coming back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu back into your home, back into your life, back into your routine. Living b'tzeil knofov Yisborach Shemai. One pasuk in Tehillim, which is my motto, V'ani Keves Elokim Li Toiv. That's essentially what Shuva is about. Gemara Chasida Tova, my dear friends, the Gemara Chasida Tova, good gebencht Shiur. We should know a year of good health and shefa and simcha and nachas from your children. We should share b'soides toivos, and we should share many hours of simcha satayra. Good gebencht Shiur.